I watched my son hand a homeless man his last dollar while wearing clothes held together by patches and prayers. That homeless man was me. I stood on the porch of the $5.2 million mansion I had built with my own hands, and my firstborn child looked straight through me like I was nothing but a ghost begging for scraps. He did not know that the beggar trembling in the December wind was not poor. He did not know that I had $600 million hidden in offshore accounts and a heart full of gasoline just waiting for a match. Before I tell you how I burned their kingdom to ashes, let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Raymond. I am 68 years old. For the last 12 years, my family believed I was dead, buried somewhere in the chaos of Venezuela after the government collapsed and trapped thousands of American businessmen in a nightmare of corruption, kidnapping, and survival. They held a funeral for me. They mourned. They moved on. And someone I trusted with my blood, used my absence to steal everything I had ever built. The night I returned to Houston, the sky was the color of bruised plums. A cold front had swept through Texas, bringing the kind of bitter wind that cuts through bone. I stood across the street from the house, on Westheimer Road, the crown jewel of the River Oaks neighborhood. I had designed every inch of that house. I had chosen the imported Italian marble, the hand-carved oak doors, the crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's cars. I had built it as a sanctuary for my son Marcus after his wife died of cancer, a place where he and my granddaughter Ellie could heal and thrive while I was overseas securing the final pieces of our family's oil empire. I had been gone for what was supposed to be 6 months. 6 months turned into 12 years of hell. My hands shook as I crossed the street. I had intentionally dressed like a vagrant. My beard was long and gray, matted from weeks without proper grooming. My coat was torn, stained with the dirt of 3 continents. I looked like exactly what I wanted them to think I was, a broken old man with nothing left to lose. But sewn into the lining of my jacket were bearer bonds worth $40 million, and in my pocket was a burner phone connected to the most ruthless law firm in Texas. I climbed the limestone steps. The brass knocker was new. Someone had replaced the original, the one shaped like a lion's head that Marcus had picked out when he was just a boy. I lifted the new knocker and let it fall. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. I waited. The door opened slowly. Just a crack. A man stood there, and for a moment, I did not recognize him. He was thin. Far too thin. His cheeks were hollow, his eyes sunken and rimmed with dark circles. He wore a gray uniform, the kind worn by housekeeping staff at hotels. His hands were wrapped in bandages stained with something brown. Grease, maybe, or blood. "Can I help you, sir?" His voice was quiet, defeated. The voice of a man who had forgotten what hope sounded like. I stared at him. I stared at the slope of his nose, the way his left eyebrow arched slightly higher than his right, the small scar on his chin from when he fell off his bicycle at age 7. It was Marcus, my son. He was 42 years old, but he looked 60. The life had been drained out of him, leaving behind only a hollow shell. I opened my mouth to say his name, but the words caught in my throat like shards of glass. He looked at me with polite confusion, the way you might look at a stray dog on your doorstep. There was no recognition, none. I was his father, and he saw only a homeless stranger. "I am sorry, sir." Marcus glanced nervously over his shoulder. "We do not give handouts at the door. If you go around to the service entrance, I can give you some bread from the kitchen. But please, you have to be quick. If my uncle sees you here, he will be furious." "Uncle," the word hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Before I could respond, a voice boomed from inside the house. "Marcus, who is at the damn door? I told you no visitors. Get rid of them." I knew that voice. I had known it for 65 years. It was the voice of my younger brother, Victor. Marcus flinched like a dog expecting to be kicked. "It is no one, Uncle Victor. Just a homeless man. I am sending him away." Footsteps thundered down the hallway. The door was yanked open wide, and there stood Victor, my baby brother, the boy I had taught to ride a bike, the man I had given his first job, the brother I had trusted to manage everything while I was trapped in South America. He had gained weight. A lot of weight. His face was flushed and bloated, the face of a man who had spent years drinking expensive whiskey and eating rich food. He wore a cashmere sweater that I recognized. It had been mine. On his wrist was a Patek Philippe watch. Also mine. He squinted at me, his piggish eyes scanning my ragged appearance. Then he laughed. A cruel, dismissive laugh. Jesus Christ, Raymond, is that you? I said nothing. I let him look. Victor shook his head in disbelief. I thought you were dead. We all thought you were dead. He turned to Marcus with a sneer. Look at this. Marcus, your father crawled out of whatever hole he was hiding in. Probably ran out of money and came begging. Marcus stared at me, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that looked almost like fear. Father? He whispered. No, my father is dead. He died in Venezuela. We had a funeral. Victor clapped Marcus on the shoulder, hard enough to make him stumble. Your father is not dead, nephew. He is just a coward who abandoned his family and let us clean up his mess. He turned back to me, his smile widening. Come in, Raymond. Do not stand out there looking pathetic. We can catch up in the kitchen. I will give you 10 minutes before I call the police. I stepped into my house. The marble floors gleamed. The chandelier sparkled. But the air was wrong. It smelled like expensive cologne layered over something rotten, like perfume sprayed on a corpse. The family portraits that had once lined the hallway were gone, replaced with gaudy abstract art. My father's antique grandfather clock was missing. In its place stood a hideous modern sculpture that looked like it cost 6 figures. Victor led me to the kitchen. It was vast and cold, all stainless steel and white marble. His wife Sandra sat at the island, sipping champagne and scrolling through her phone. She was 58 but looked younger, thanks to surgeries and treatments that had probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. My dollars. She looked up when we entered. Her eyes widened for a moment, then narrowed with contempt. Raymond. Her voice dripped with disdain. You look like a sewer rat. I turned to Marcus. He stood in the corner of the kitchen, his head bowed, his bandaged hands clasped in front of him like a servant awaiting orders. Why is my son dressed like staff? I asked, my voice low and controlled. Why is he in this kitchen looking like he has not slept in weeks? Victor poured himself a glass of my vintage bourbon. Because he works here, Raymond. He works to pay off the debt you left behind. When you disappeared, everything went to hell. The accounts were frozen. The creditors came knocking. I had to use my own money to save this house, to keep your grandchild fed and clothed. And now, Marcus works to repay me. It is only fair. Lies. Every word was a lie. I had left no debt. I had left millions in trusts, safety nets designed specifically for this scenario. I looked at my son. Is this true, Marcus? He nodded, still not meeting my eyes. Uncle Victor saved us. Father, when you vanished, when the government declared you dead, we lost everything. The company, the accounts, the properties. Uncle Victor took us in. He gave us a home. I owe him everything. My heart cracked down the middle. 12 years. For 12 years, my brother had been feeding my son lies, rewriting history, turning me into the villain while he played the hero. And all the while, he had been living in my house, spending my money, and working my son like a slave. I forced my shoulders to slump. I let my head drop. I adopted the posture of a beaten, broken man. I did not know, I stammered. I thought everything was protected. The trusts, the accounts. I tried to come back, but the borders were closed. The embassies could not help. I spent years in detention camps, in hiding, just trying to survive. Victor laughed, the sound sharp and ugly. Well, you survived for nothing, big brother. There is nothing left. You are dead on paper, which means you have no legal claim to anything. This house is mine. The company is mine. And your son? He stays here because he knows what is good for him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a money clip. He peeled off $300 bills and threw them on the floor at my feet. Take it. Consider it a gift from your loving brother. Now get out and do not come back. If I see you near this property again, I will have you arrested for trespassing. I stared at the money on the white tile floor. $300. The price of my dignity. The price of my silence. Marcus made a small sound in the corner. Please, father, he whispered. Just take it and go. I do not want trouble. Ellie does not need to see this. Ellie, my granddaughter. She was 15 now, I had not seen her since she was 3 years old. Where is she? I asked. Marcus hesitated. She is at school. Sandra snorted. She is at the public school across town. We could not afford private tutors for her anymore, not with all the debt your husband left behind. She looked at me with pure venom. Your granddaughter takes the bus for 2 hours every day because of you. I bent down slowly. My knees cracked. I picked up the $300, feeling the humiliation burn through me like acid. But I held on to it. I would use this rage. I would forge it into a weapon. Thank you, Victor, I said softly. Now get out. Victor drained his bourbon and turned his back on me. Marcus, show him the service entrance. And then finish polishing the silver. We have guests coming for dinner. Marcus led me through the house, past the rooms I had decorated with such care, past the memories that had been erased and replaced with Victor's gaudy taste. When we reached the service door, he grabbed my arm. His grip was weak, so weak it broke my heart. You should not have come back, Father. His voice was barely a whisper. Victor knows people. Judges, police, politicians. He controls everything now. If you make trouble, he will destroy you, and he will take it out on me, on Ellie. Why do you stay, Marcus? I asked. Why do you let him treat you this way? His eyes filled with tears. Because of Ellie, Father. She has asthma, severe asthma. The medications cost thousands every month. Victor pays for them. If I leave, if I stop working, he cuts off her prescriptions. She could die. He looked at me with despair so deep it seemed bottomless. I would rather live as a slave than bury my daughter. There it was, the hostage, the chain that kept my son bound to his uncle. I understand, I said. I squeezed his hand. I will go. I walked out into the cold December night. The door closed behind me with a soft click. I stood in the alley behind my own house, the rain soaking through my coat, and I made a promise to myself and to God and to anyone else who might be listening. I would not just save my family. I would annihilate everyone who had hurt them. A black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down. Mr. Thornton. My attorney, Gerald Whitmore, looked at me with grim determination. Get in. I climbed into the warm leather interior. I peeled off the fake grime I had applied to my face and pulled a clean shirt from the bag on the seat. Did you plant it? Whitmore asked. I showed him my phone. The app displayed a green light, indicating the listening device I had stuck under the kitchen island was active and transmitting. Good, Whitmore nodded. Let us see what your brother really thinks. We drove to the Four Seasons downtown. I had a suite on the top floor under a false name, paid for in cash. As we rode the elevator up, I listened to the audio feed from the bug. Victor's voice came through crystal clear. Do you think he bought it? Sandra laughed. He looked pathetic, like a dog that got kicked too many times. He will take that money and disappear. He knows he cannot fight us. And if he does not disappear? Victor asked. Then we call the police, Sandra said. We tell them a mentally unstable vagrant is harassing us. They will lock him up so fast his head will spin. You know Judge Harrison owes you favors. Victor chuckled. Pour me another drink, sweetheart, to Raymond, the brother who was too stupid to protect his own empire. I heard glasses clink. In the hotel suite, I stood by the window looking out at the Houston skyline. My city. My home. The place where I had built everything from nothing. They think I am stupid, I said to Whitmore. They think I am broken. He opened his briefcase and spread documents across the table. What they do not know, Mr. Thornton, is that you have been preparing for this for 3 years. I turned from the window. 3 years. That was how long it had taken me to escape Venezuela, to recover my hidden assets, to build a case so airtight that not even God could poke holes in it. What is the status of the trusts? I asked. Intact, Whitmore said. Every single one. Your brother somehow convinced Marcus that the trusts were dissolved, but that is impossible. They are irrevocable. The beneficiaries are your son and granddaughter. The money has been accumulating for 12 years. Marcus has access to over $30 million that he does not even know exists. And the house? Still in your name. Victor forged documents to claim occupancy rights. But the deed was never transferred. You can evict him tomorrow if you want. I shook my head. Not yet. I want more than just my property back. I want them destroyed. Financially, socially, legally. I want them to feel everything my son has felt for the last 12 years. Whitmore smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then let us talk about Victor's business dealings, because I have found some very interesting irregularities. We worked through the night. By dawn, I had a complete picture of my brother's crimes: embezzlement, fraud, tax evasion, elder abuse, false imprisonment. Victor had been siphoning money from my accounts for over a decade using forged power of attorney documents. He had bribed officials to declare me dead. He had systematically isolated Marcus from anyone who might have helped him, firing the family lawyers, cutting off contact with old friends, creating a bubble of lies and dependency. But Victor had made one critical mistake. He had gotten greedy. He had started stealing from his own business partners, and those partners were not the forgiving type. It is time to make some calls, I told Whitmore. For the next 2 weeks, I became a ghost. I moved through Houston unseen, gathering intelligence, making alliances, setting traps. I contacted Victor's business partners and showed them proof of his theft. I reached out to the IRS with documented evidence of tax fraud. I hired a private investigator to dig into Victor and Sandra's personal lives, and what he found was enough to make even me feel sick. But the hardest part was watching my son through the cameras I had secretly installed in the house. Every day, I watched Marcus work from dawn until midnight. I watched him cook, clean, serve, and grovel. I watched Victor berate him for imaginary failures. I watched Sandra treat him like furniture. And then came the night that almost broke me. It was 11 p.m. Marcus was in the kitchen, preparing a late-night snack for Victor. Through the camera, I saw my brother stumble in, drunk as usual. "Marcus," Victor slurred. "I need you to do something for me." "Yes, Uncle Victor." Marcus's voice was flat, dead. "Tomorrow, there is a man coming to see me, a business associate. When he arrives, you are going to tell him that everything he has heard about me is a lie. You are going to say that I am the most honest businessman in Texas. You are going to convince him to invest another $5 million in my development project." Marcus hesitated. "I do not know anything about your business, Uncle Victor. I do not think I can be convincing." Victor's face twisted with rage. He grabbed a bottle of wine from the counter and hurled it at the floor. It shattered, spraying red liquid everywhere. "You will do what I tell you to do." He advanced on Marcus, grabbing him by the collar. "You live in my house. You eat my food. Your daughter breathes because I let her breathe. If I tell you to bark like a dog, you bark. If I tell you to crawl on the floor and lick my shoes, you crawl. Do you understand me?" "Yes, Uncle Victor." Marcus's voice cracked. "I understand." "Good. Now clean this mess up." Victor released him and walked away, whistling. I watched my son sink to his knees on the glass-covered floor. I watched him pick up the shattered pieces with his bare hands, blood mixing with the wine. I watched him cry silently, his shoulders shaking with sobs he could not allow himself to voice. I closed my laptop. I could not watch anymore. The next morning, I went to the hospital. Not for myself, but for answers. I walked into Texas Children's Hospital wearing a $3,000 suit. Whitmore had arranged a meeting with the billing administrator. We sat in her office, and she pulled up the records for Ellie Thornton, my granddaughter. "Mr. Thornton," the administrator said, her brow furrowed in confusion. "I am not sure what you are asking. Ellie's medical bills are fully covered." "By whom?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "By the Thornton Family Medical Trust. It is an irrevocable trust established in 2008. She clicked through screens. "It has been paying all of Ellie's medical expenses automatically since she was first diagnosed with asthma. The current balance is over $2 million. I closed my eyes. Victor had told Marcus that he was paying for Ellie's medication out of his own pocket. He had used a sick child as leverage, as a hostage, when the money was there all along. My money. "What about statements?" I asked. "Does the trust send confirmation letters to the beneficiary?" "Yes, of course. Monthly statements are sent to the address on file." She looked at the screen. "The address is 4721 Westheimer Road, Houston. My house. The house where Victor intercepted every piece of mail." the house where my son had been kept in deliberate ignorance. I need copies of all statements from the past 12 years, I said, and I need them notarized. That afternoon, I met with Marcus's ex-lawyer, a man named Peterson who had been fired by Victor years ago. He was eager to help, not just because of the money, but because he had suspected something was wrong and had been unable to prove it. I always wondered about Marcus, Peterson said. He was such a bright young man. Then his father disappeared and everything changed. Victor swooped in like a vulture. Within months, Marcus was living in that house like a prisoner. But what could I do? Victor had power of attorney. Victor controlled everything. He does not control me, I said. The pieces were falling into place. But I needed one final confrontation. I needed Victor and Sandra to incriminate themselves completely, on camera and on record. 2 days before Christmas, I made my move. I arrived at the house at noon. But this time, I did not look like a vagrant. I wore my finest suit. I drove a Bentley. I walked up those limestone steps with the confidence of a man who owns the very ground beneath his feet. Marcus answered the door. His eyes went wide with shock. "Father?" He looked at my clothes, my car, my bearing. "What is happening? You look different. You look like the man I actually am," I said. "Let me in, Marcus. It is time you learned the truth." Victor and Sandra were in the living room when I walked in. Victor spilled his drink on the carpet. Sandra screamed. "What the hell?" Victor sputtered. "How did you get in here?" I walked to the center of the room and turned to face them both. "This is my house, Victor. I bought it, I own it, and as of this morning, I have legally reclaimed it." I pulled documents from my briefcase and spread them on the coffee table. Deeds, trust documents, bank statements, forged signatures, everything. "For 12 years, I said, you have been stealing from my son. You convinced him that he owed you money, when in fact, the trusts I established have been paying for everything all along. You intercepted the statements. You forged my death certificate. You committed fraud on a scale that would make Bernie Madoff blush." Victor's face went from red to white in the span of seconds. "That is a lie. You cannot prove any of this." "Actually, I can." I pulled out my phone and played the recording from the kitchen, the one where he ordered Marcus to lie to his business partner, the one where he threatened Ellie's life. Sandra let out a strangled cry. "That is illegal. You cannot record us without consent." "Texas is a one-party consent state," I said, and I consented. The front door opened. Gerald Whitmore walked in, followed by 2 police officers and a woman from Child Protective Services. "Victor Thornton, Sandra Thornton," one of the officers said, "you are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent." As they put the handcuffs on Victor, he looked at me with pure hatred. "This is not over, Raymond. I will fight this. I will destroy you." I leaned in close to his ear. "You already tried, little brother, and you failed." I watched them drag Victor and Sandra out of my house. I watched the police cars drive away. And then I turned to my son. Marcus stood in the doorway, trembling. Tears streamed down his face. "Is it true, Father?" he whispered. "Was it all a lie?" I walked to him and wrapped my arms around him. For the first time in 12 years, I held my son. "It was all a lie," I said. "Every word. You owe nothing. Ellie's medication is paid for. The money is yours. This house is yours. And I am here now. I am never leaving again." He collapsed against me, sobbing like a child. I held him until the shaking stopped. That evening, I met my granddaughter for the first time in 12 years. Ellie was 15, bright and beautiful, and so much like her mother that it made my heart ache. She looked at me with suspicion at first, having been told I was dead, having been told I was a criminal. But children are resilient, and children can sense the truth. By midnight, she was sitting on my lap, showing me photos from her phone, telling me about her friends and her dreams. She wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to help sick children like she had once been. "I will pay for every year of medical school," I told her. "I will buy you your own hospital if you want." She laughed. "Just being here is enough, Grandpa. Just being a family again." The criminal case against Victor and Sandra moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. By February, they had both pled guilty to avoid trial. Victor received 8 years in federal prison. Sandra received 5. They lost everything. The house, the cars, the jewelry, the art. It was all seized to pay back the money they had stolen. I bought my son a new house, a beautiful colonial in Memorial. I hired the best therapists to help him recover from 12 years of psychological abuse. I set up a college fund for Ellie that would let her attend any university in the world. And on Marcus's birthday, 6 months after my return, I gathered my family in the backyard of the new house for a barbecue. It was just the 3 of us, Marcus, Ellie, and me. We grilled steaks and corn and laughed at stupid jokes. At one point, Marcus pulled me aside. He looked healthier now, stronger. The light had returned to his eyes. "I never thanked you properly," he said, "for coming back, for fighting for us." "You are my son," I said. "There is nothing I would not do for you." Nothing. He hugged me then. A real hug. The kind of hug I had dreamed about for 12 years in the jungles and prisons and refugee camps of South America. I was 68 years old. I had lost 12 years of my life. I had lost my wife to cancer, my brother to greed, and my son to lies. But as I stood in that backyard, watching my granddaughter chase fireflies in the Texas twilight, I realized something important. I had not lost everything. I had found what mattered most: family. The past was dead. The future was ours. If you learned anything from my story, it is this: the people who claim to love you are sometimes the ones who hurt you most. And when they do, you have 2 choices. You can accept defeat, or you can rise from the ashes and take back everything they stole. I chose to rise, and I would do it again. 1,000 times over. If you are out there fighting your own battle, if someone has stolen your peace, your money, your family, know this: it is never too late. As long as you draw breath, you have power. As long as you have will, you can win. Never give up. Never surrender. That is the lesson of Raymond Thornton. And that is where my story ends. Not with vengeance, but with redemption. Not with anger, but with love. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, justice is not given. Justice is taken. Goodbye, my friends. Until next time.